Today on Southern Food Junkie, we're going to be showing you how to use a bread machine. We'll be using a Black & Decker all-in-one bread machine, and we're going to show you all the ins and outs of it. So y'all stay tuned. Alright guys, we had a request from one of our viewers from our bread machine white bread video a few weeks ago to do a how to use on a bread machine. So this is just going to be a quick recap on pretty much how to use it. This is the manual that comes with our Black & Decker all-in-one bread machine maker, and I'm going to quickly go over the buttons for you. It's hard to see the screen here, but this first button here is the crust. This next one is the loaf size. This is the start button. And this button right here, if you can see it, this is your actual menu button. It goes through your different menus, and then these two right here are your timer buttons. You can add to the timer. Here we have a window where you see down in there. There's the vent there for your steam. Once you open the lid here, you see your pan inside, and down inside there is the to get your pan out, you simply turn it just a little bit. You can see down in there there's a heating element that goes around the outside. This is what bakes the bread. This is where your pan, the bottom of your pan fits into. If we look down in here, you can see the paddle there that mixes your bread up. Here I'm showing you how the paddle comes off of the spindle there. Before you get started, you just put it back in there, and then you'll put your pan back into the bread machine. You simply just place the pan back in there. It's going to sit kind of at a little angle, and just snap it back in there. At this point, you're going to put your ingredients in. You always start with your wet ingredients on the bottom, and then you would put your dry ingredients on top. This first button right here is selects the crust darkness, and when you press it here, you can see it change from light to medium to dark. See that little arrow right there moving? This next one right here is the size selection of your bread. This actual machine here goes from a 2 pound to a 1.5 pound. And you can see it right there. And when you adjust it, you can see it changes the time on it. And this next one is your start button. Once you put all your ingredients in there, you simply just hit start, and it will start mixing up. And that's what it looks like when it mixes. And this next button right here, you can't see it, but this is your menu button. So right here, it goes to your different menus that we read out before, and you just select which one you do. For my recipe that I use at Ron's white bread, the bread machine white bread recipe that I shared a few weeks back, I use the number 1 setting. There's 10 on here. And number 10, I think, is a preserve setting where you can actually cook preserves in here. Minus button are simply just a delay button. Like you can see, the time is set at 2 hours and 53 minutes. If you hit that, it just keeps adding 10 minute intervals on it. That's all that does. It's been a good machine. The only problem I've ever had with it is this lid. Every time you pick it up, it pops. It's done that pretty much not long after I bought it. It's got some kind of little catch in the hinge there. But other than that, it's always made bread. The reason why this makes good bread is it mixes up. It does all the kneading for you. And then, you know, when you make homemade bread, you knead it for so long, and then you divide it up, and then, or you knead it for so long, and then you put it in a bowl, and then you cover it with saran wrap, and they tell you to set it in like a warm environment, like a warm area of your house or something like that. And that allows the yeast to start working and building up that, start rising and stuff. And then you punch it down, and then you divide it and do all of that. Well, this does all that for you. Once it mixes the first little bit, it'll quit mixing, and the heating element will come on just ever so slightly. It might make it get like 80 or 100 degrees in here, and it causes the bread to start rising. And then once it's time to knead again, it does that. And once it gets so far, it has a beeping tone while it's kneading. about middle ways through before it actually starts the baking process. And at this point, it allows you to add in other ingredients. Like, let's say you was making pepperoni and cheese bread. You could throw your pepperoni and cheese in there at that point. It would mix it up, and then it would, 10 minutes or so, it would start the baking process. It's kind of near the very end of the kneading rising process. So it's very handy. You don't have to, it cuts out a good many of the steps that you would do with regular baking. And like I said, I like it. There's all kind of recipes in this book that come with it that you can try. It tells you the different program settings, and that's pretty much it. Here, I'll read through the settings for you right quick. Program settings, what they mean. Basic, you can use this setting for most recipes. You use white flour, rapid bake quickly, bakes 1.5 size. Bread loaves, rapid bake 2, it makes 2-pound size. Sandwich bread for sandwiches with a thinner crust and a lighter texture. Whole grain bakes breads that contains large amounts of wheat flour. This setting has a longer rise cycle. So see the different settings there takes into account that the whole grain needs longer rise cycle. So you need to make sure you're using the right cycle for what bread you're making. Dough, if you're going to make pizza dough, which is what I want to do, this prepares dough that can be shaped into make coffee cakes, rolls, pizza, and other breads baked in a conventional oven. So we would make just use the machine basically just to make the pizza dough. Is all we're going to do. And it does all the kneading and all that. Once it's done rising, then you would actually take the dough out of the bread machine, cut it up, and then I'm going to actually wrap it up and put it in the freezer and store it. But here you got the last one here, preserves. This setting is used to make jams from fresh fruit. Also, here's a couple things that I was kind of mentioning before. The liquid is always the first ingredient. Dry ingredients follow, and the yeast is added last. So like it's saying here, you make a small well in the center of the flour and place the yeast there. And that's important when using the delay bake function, because that keeps the yeast from being activated. It stays up on top of the dry ingredients there. Measure carefully, keep it fresh, use fresh ingredients, room temperature, perfect dough. In very humid weather, bread may require a little more flour. So I mentioned that in my bread machine white bread video, that depending on where you live, elevation, human environment, non-human environment, that you may have to account for a little bit more water or a little less or a little bit more flour, etc. Look but don't open. Don't open the glass cover. It's there to monitor. It keeps in the heat and all that during the baking process. In the initial mixing, you can open it to use the rubber spatula, like you showed me, like you see me doing in the video where I was mixing. And and a lot of people don't know this, but you can freeze bread. We buy bread all the time from the bread store. But you can buy bread or use baked bread, and you can freeze it, and as soon as you thaw it out, it tastes just pretty close to what it was before you froze it. There's many things you can freeze like that: potato chips, corn chips, flour tortillas, things along those lines. You can freeze. You can buy them in bulk and freeze them. But we buy bread at a bread store a lot of times. The Nutri-Grain bread is $3 in the grocery store. It may be $1 at the bread store. So you can buy 3 loaves for the same price you can a regular loaf, and it's day-old bread, so it's 1 day out of date. Not quite as fresh as regular bread. We'll buy it and we'll throw it in the freezer and keep it. When we need it, we lay a loaf out, thaw it out. It's good to use in a couple of hours. It's ready to go. So, alright, I hope this video provided some insight on how to use a bread machine. I hope this was valuable to you. I hope it answered your question to the couple of viewers that asked for it. And we appreciate y'all stopping by and appreciate your time. And don't forget, guys, let's get food junk. Hit that subscribe button right there at the bottom and that bell so you'll get the notifications. And we'll see y'all in the next time.